Coming up on The Reveal.
Breathe, honey, breathe.
They're almost like an epileptic seizure, except I'm completely alert.
What you can do if there's an unexpected side effect of COVID-19. Then, answering the call.
The phones ring off the hook daily, so we're answering calls all day, emails, responding to voicemails.
Why there's now an overtime effort to get people financial help amid the pandemic. Plus,
do you have any concerns about taking part in a trial?
Inside the latest vaccine trial hoping to help stop the spread of the virus.
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Mural Award-winning team of investigators.
Welcome to The Reveal. I'm investigator Rebecca Lindstrom. Soon, 4 million people in Georgia will have had at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and more than 10,000 people have been treated in the ICU for the virus. Now, both of these are what's called countermeasures, and if you find yourself injured by either one, there is a program that is designed to help.
Breathe, honey, breathe. Look at her toes cramping up.
Christy Simmons battles tremors.
Honey, sit up.
There is no doubt the video is hard to watch.
They're almost like an epileptic seizure, except I'm completely alert.
And it was like devastating.
Roger Loisel struggles to lift his right arm.
The pain was ridiculous. To even get something to drink, I had to hold my wrist with the other hand.
Both believe their injuries have something to do with the COVID-19 vaccine. For Roger, it was how the shot was given.
When they did the first one, I thought to myself, okay, that seemed pretty high because it was like more up into the shoulder area.
But Christy has no idea what happened, and neither do doctors.
They treat me like I'm the unicorn.
Both could qualify for the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. It's a long, clunky name for a federal program that reimburses medical costs and lost wages to those injured in this case by a COVID-related treatment. The goal was to remove liability during a national emergency. It was first used with H1N1.
I imagine when all of the H1N1 claims started to come in, it seemed kind of overwhelming. Do you anticipate anything similar with COVID?
It depends on how well the press does their job.
What we do is...
Dr. Vito Caserta helped create the CICP and served as director until his retirement. He says the press needs to make clear the program isn't just about vaccine, but also injuries from drugs or ventilators used as treatment.
If they get put on a ventilator and somebody set the settings a little too high and then they have a pneumothorax where the lung collapses and all these complications, well, then maybe they have a claim.
That may sound easy, but since the program started a decade ago, only 6% of claims have been approved. Since June, The Reveal has tracked 255 new claims, none approved. 45 claims have been denied, some likely filed before the pandemic, and 210 claims are still pending medical review.
The way Congress wrote the law that created the program, the evidence needs to be compelling. And compelling is a high level of evidence.
The Reveal has tried for 7 months to get information on the types of injuries alleged over the years and why so many claims were denied. We're still waiting.
It is tremendously secretive.
Peter Myers, a retired George Washington University Law School professor, did receive several responses to his requests, offering insight into the first 48 COVID-related claims filed. About half involved the vaccine, 9 related to the use of a ventilator. Among the top injuries claimed, allergic reactions and death.
If the Biden administration wants to get the trust of the American people to counter this hesitancy among millions of Americans to getting vaccinated, you would think that they would adopt an open and more forthcoming perspective.
Myers says the real story in the data is how few claims have been submitted, and some seem absurd on their surface, like a shoulder injury from a face mask or even attempted murder.
It may turn out that wearing a mask causes psychiatric issues in certain people, and so it may be a valid claim. Put in your request for benefits.
Myers says without more transparency, the program has no accountability. There are no hearings, no compensation for pain and suffering, or reimbursement if you hire an attorney to help with the forms.
I'm either walking with a cane, a walker.
Christy knows severe reactions are rare, and no one has proven her seizures are related to the vaccine. But when potential injuries do happen, she believes the government must be passionate about finding answers and compensating people for their care.
It should be a simple, cut and dry issue.
She has yet to file a claim with the CICP. Neither has Roger, who, despite his injury, did go back for his second shot.
We figured to go overseas, we're only going to have some proof that we've been vaccinated. So we were eager to get it done.
But Roger wonders just how eager the government will be to stand by him. There is another vaccine program that will pay pain and suffering, but right now the COVID-19 vaccine is not a part of it. While some say they're holding out, hoping that will change, the CICP warns that you only have 1 year from the date of your injury to file a claim.
Up next on The Reveal, swamped and struggling to answer the call.
Are the phone lines still that jammed that people can't get in touch?
They're able to get to about 10 to 15% of the calls every single day.
That leaves 85% of the people who tried to call that aren't going to reach you.
The Reveal investigates why so many people are still struggling with unemployment claims more than a year into the pandemic. For more on these investigations or to submit a tip to the Reveal team, text REVEAL to 404-873-9114 or email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Welcome back. You may never have tested positive for COVID, but chances are you were financially impacted by it. More than 4 million people in Georgia filed for unemployment last year, and that loss of work has created an unimaginable job for those working at the Department of Labor. So this is sunshine.
Yes.
Have you spent much time in this?
No. Not at all.
How does it feel?
Feels amazing.
Stacy Jones hasn't seen a lot of sunshine in the past year.
Maybe in a car. It's coming through the window.
Jones has done more overtime than just about any other state employee. To be exact, 1,461 hours of overtime.
Initially, it was kind of this will be over soon. It's going to be a 2 or 3 month thing. It's going to be fine.
But Jones works for the Department of Labor. Yeah, the department that processes all of those unemployment claims. She is chief of tax administration. That's the office that deals with the employers. But during the pandemic, she's been asked to deal with the employees too.
The phones ring off the hook daily, so we're answering calls all day, emails, responding to voicemails.
We pulled the data for the past 3 years. Traditionally, the state employees that performed the most OT worked for the Department of Juvenile Justice and Behavioral Health, correctional workers, and home health aides. But 2020 was the dawn of something new. Last year, 11 of the top 50 were from the DOL, all with more than 1,000 hours of overtime.
There's a lot of people here who haven't taken a day off in a year. And when I say a day off, I'm including Saturdays and Sundays.
And Commissioner Mark Butler says he's not sure when that will change. Well, the unemployment rate is dropping. The DOL still gets 25,000 new claims for unemployment each week. That's more than his office typically processes in a month.
If you would have told me that in basically 1 year's time that we were going to be required to pay out $20 billion in unemployment benefits, I would have thought you had lost your mind.
But if you're still the one waiting to get paid, you might feel a little crazy. In just 2 weeks, 11 Alive received nearly 200 emails from viewers struggling with their claims. Are the phone lines still that jammed that people can't get in touch?
They're able to get to about 10 to 15% of the calls every single day.
That leaves 85% of the people who tried to call that aren't going to reach you.
Well, that's what happens when Congress puts 85% of the responsibility of financial relief on a department they've been underfunding for 10 years.
Butler says it is Congress that casts this shadow, approving complicated federal unemployment programs with no state systems in place to make the payments.
And I don't think Congress knew that when they passed the law.
Then it was Congress that allowed benefits to run out without approving funding to back pay those who stopped receiving checks in the fall.
They only said, well, if you're still unemployed come January, we'll start paying you then.
And now Butler says 80% of the claims coming into his office are from people who quit or were fired. People who don't traditionally qualify for unemployment but believe federal programs can still help.
Because there's a lot of false information that's been put out there.
Whatever the reason, with about 60,000 calls coming in a day, that's 51,000 that go unanswered. And just in case there is a way to help some qualify for benefits, employees like Jones are processing the bulk of new cases by hand. So if you know that 85% of the people who call can't get through, why not hire more people to answer the phones?
We have been.
About 600 new employees. But he says the turnover rate is high, and it's still clearly not enough.
I love what I do.
Several times a year, Jones travels west to see her family.
Traveling, I love just being on the beach, relaxing, reading.
But this past year, she's barely seen the family living in her own home.
We've had to give up simple things like enjoying an evening dinner together.
Because Jones is working sun up to sun down. The job loss for so many, creating a job with no end for others.
It's not as much of a balance of a personal and professional life anymore. It's pretty much working all the time.
If you are still struggling to reach the Department of Labor, visit The Reveal on 11alive.com for a list of resources.
Up next on The Reveal, COVID-19 vaccines.
You've got to think, how do you want to get it not only to rural areas of this country, but everywhere on the planet.
Why we're still working to find more options despite already having 3 vaccines on the market.
Your favorite, step out of the vehicle for me.
These people really put my freedom in the hands of a coin flip.
Imagine getting arrested and having no idea the decision was made on the flip of a coin. Without our intervention, what would have happened when you went into court?
I would have had no idea, and I probably would have pled no contest. Nobody would have known about it.
That's what we do. We reveal what's hidden, and we got this defendant's case thrown out because otherwise she wouldn't have known.
We have 3 COVID vaccines right now, but as the virus mutates, more research is needed. My husband and I are part of the Novavax trial, a 4th vaccine option. So why do we need more vaccine with interest in the shots waning?
I'm reading about basically messenger RNA vaccines.
My husband Stephen is a chemist and actually understands all of that scientific language listed in clinical trial reports.
Poly-A sequence variants by high-resolution LCMS.
He's a great resource for someone like me, a reporter who tries to take all of that complicated lingo, break it down into something the rest of us can understand.
Do you have any concerns about taking part in a trial?
No, not really.
So 3 days after Christmas, we found ourselves here on I-75.
Did you get over one?
Yeah. Heading to Clinical Research Atlanta for our first injection as part of the Novavax trial.
We already have Moderna, we already have Pfizer. Why are we doing more research? Like, why do we need another vaccine?
You got, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 7 billion people on this planet, and they all need to get vaccinated at some point.
My husband's answers mirrored Dr. Nathan Siegel, one of the investigators on our study.
We want to make billions of doses, and to rely on 1 or 2 companies to do that would be unwise.
Both explain vaccines use different ingredients. Multiple methods reduce the chance of a shortage. Each vaccine also approaches COVID in a different way, so one might work better for people with severe allergies or some other side effect. Storage is also an issue. Some vaccines like Novavax can go in a traditional refrigerator.
In the developing world, it really does make a difference.
And of course, it would be great to find a vaccine equally effective with just 1 dose. But to find those solutions, you need people willing to test the product. And I knew from previous stories on vaccine studies that that meant the dreaded nasal swab.
I hate it.
I will openly admit relief when I learned in this study. You'll tell me if I'm going in too far, or I'll know.
You're not, because you'll start crying.
I wouldn't have to place the swab as far back as a traditional COVID test. Okay, I can handle that.
It's not bad at all.
That makes me feel better.
Answer a couple simple questions.
But we would have to log any symptoms for 7 days after receiving each injection. Did you experience joint pain? No. Nausea, vomiting? No.
Did you experience any redness at the injection site? I don't think so.
And we would have to take our temperature every day for a year. If this isn't effective, we've pushed back a long time, how long it's going to be before we get an effective vaccine.
Yeah, you're definitely taking it on the chin for science, no question about it.
Getting the science right matters, not only because I have a scientist for a husband, but because I have a 3-generation household. Kids attending school in person each morning when possible, and parents sharing a dinner table with us each night.
I guess it's a little bit of a pain to actually be a part of the solution.
Worth it?
You know.
We'll find out.
We'll find out, yeah.
For more on these investigations or to submit a tip to the Reveal team, text REVEAL to 404-873-9114 or email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Turn around.
No.
Turn around. Our investigations have impact.
Is there a reason why you won't talk with me?
You've recently been indicted.
This is on the record.
Change laws.
We're going to look to see where maybe we need to change the laws.
Don't you think someone needs to be held accountable for this?
I don't have any comments on that, sir.
Expose crimes. Crimes that lead to murder indictments.
We would not be able to prosecute this case without that video.
See the 11 Alive investigators change the face of local news.
How long do COVID antibodies last? That is the real question that scientists, as well as the rest of us, are trying to figure out in real time. Reveal investigator Andy Perotti was one of the first to contract the virus back in March of 2020. So we sent him to find out if he still has protection from the virus.
So, here we are. I'm in an urgent care in Atlanta, and it's been a full year since I recovered from COVID-19. That was me about 2 weeks ago, just before taking my 3rd antibody test in a year. The first test happened in early April 2020, a few weeks after I recovered from an elevated case of COVID-19. Still feeling crummy, 103 fever. The second antibody test happened 8 months later this past October. The results for both, positive.
One of the most valuable things on the planet right now.
So will I have antibodies more than a year later? I'm not nervous or anxious. I'm more just curious. All right, let's go. This time I took 2 tests. The first, a rapid test, which included a finger prick and results within hours. The other, a blood draw, which went to a lab. 48 hours later, the results were in. Both tests showed I still had antibodies a full year later. My doctor even writing in the results, "You're still immune."
I think that that's great.
Dr. Jane Morgan is the clinical director of Piedmont's COVID task force. While presence of natural antibodies may be detected for months, the doctor still recommends getting a vaccine.
Some people are showing very little or very few antibodies beyond 90 days, and other people, like yourself, are still showing antibodies out at 1 year. So it's inconsistent. And because it's inconsistent, we're still recommending that everyone, even those who have had COVID-19 itself, still receive the vaccine after your symptoms have resolved, because this natural immunity or native immunity that you have, it's inconsistent and variable from person to person. And so think of the vaccine then after you've had COVID maybe as a booster shot to reintroduce your system, to re-jumpstart it.
The most common antibody test only tells patients whether antibodies are still present. That's the one we used. But there are other tests that will measure the level of antibodies present. Those are more expensive and difficult to find. Thanks for watching The Reveal. We hope you'll join us again next week.